Live from the Redneck Garage. I'm out here with my Jeep Cherokee. If you've been watching the channel, you know that we put an exhaust manifold on it. We did a tune-up. It's running like a top. Now the stinking thing won't start. And if you got a Jeep that won't start, let's look at some troubleshooting procedures on what to do if your Jeep won't crank over. Well, if you've got something for sale, I'm asking $2,200 for it, which is very fair. It's in great shape. We'll see how that goes. I haven't opened up the Craigslist, every crazy person in the world calling yet. I've just got it at the end of the driveway. But anyway, let's look at why it won't start. First question is, how's the battery? What condition is the battery in? The battery is brand new. I just bought it like a couple weeks ago, and it should be just fine. Now, if you don't have gauges and you just have idiot's lights, you just want to look for dash lights to see if you've got any power. When I turn the key, nothing happens. So if you turn your key, it really doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you have and nothing happens. Now you get to troubleshoot what's going on. First, we're going to check the battery voltage. Part of the diagnosis I'm going to use is a power probe. I think this is a power probe 4. They are freaking awesome diagnostic tools. I got a link down below. If you want to buy one, you can't go wrong with these. Looking at 12.69 volts, so that should be plenty to start the vehicle. 12.6 volts should be enough unless the battery's crapped out. It's brand new, so I don't really have to diagnose that. If you turn your key and the battery goes down to 0 volts, you know it's probably the battery that's not helping you out at all. But that's not the case. It's a brand new battery. Next, we're going to check to see if we're actually getting a signal from the key ignition. The starter is on this side over here, and you'll have one big wire that goes straight to the battery, one small wire that goes to the ignition itself. So I'm going to hook a wire up to the ignition itself. All right, I got a jumper wire hooked up to the ignition side of the starter, and that starter isn't that old. You can see it says CarQuest. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn the key on. There it is. We got dash lights, so that means it's getting power to the dash. And I'll go over here. We'll touch this to the positive side and see what happens. Oh, that's not good. Okay, so what does that tell us? If we can put 12 volts to the small terminal on the starter, that means that seems to be a problem with the ignition switch itself. When you turn the key, it's not sending a signal or 12 volts to the starter. Now let's test that theory. Nothing. So what that tells me is it's probably in the switch. We'll go ahead and take off our cover here, see what we got. Okay, so at this point, I thought I'd add this little note in there before y'all start putting comments in. I realized that I didn't do any more diagnostic work. I just assumed that it's going to be the part that's coming up next, where I could have kept testing. But sometimes you just go, okay, that's what it is. It's got to be that. I've seen this particular part fail many, many times. So that's kind of where my head was at this moment. Nothing critical, but one of those moments where you go, oh, that's what it is. And the prescription did not fit the illness. So what that tells you is that your ignition switch, there's an issue in that, and these had problems with those. They would melt because of the air conditioning and things like that. Very sporadic, but we've nailed it down to that. I'm going to go ahead and take the shroud off, and then we'll examine the switch itself. This is your ignition switch on these older Jeeps right here, and you need a tamper-proof Torx to get it off. Alright, so I did some price checking on this switch, and AutoZone had the best price locally. Amazon was the cheapest anywhere else, even over eBay. So I'm running down there to pick it up, but I've printed out what part number it is. It's an LS711, because just like the spark plugs, if you're not sure what part you're getting from AutoZone, you're not sure what part you're going to get from AutoZone. We'll tell you this, the last thing you want to do if you got a for sale sign on a vehicle is spend more money on it. But on the flip side is the last thing you want to do is try to sell a vehicle and turn the key and nothing happens. I'm going to go ahead and take the switch off with an Antitheft Torx. Okay, so if that was what was wrong, it should start. All right, so now we're at the point, it's not the ignition switch, it's not the battery, it's not the starter. What else could it be? Well, we're only left with a couple more things. The relay, right, wiring, or the neutral safety switch. The neutral safety switch or a clutch safety switch, depending on if it's an automatic or a manual. This one's an automatic, so it's got a neutral safety switch. Let's take a look at that. So typically when you run into an issue like this, the factory service manual is usually a big help. I've even printed out the pages in it. Now, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody that's just a pain in that butt, but like we've got to get out the torque wrench to put on the lug nuts on the back of the vehicle. We must center exactly the jack. You know, just somebody that's just a douche, right? That makes everything more difficult than it has to be. 10 times harder than it should be, because they're just like they know more than everybody else. And that's who wrote the factory manual in 1997 for this Jeep. We'll call him Jerry the douchebag, right? Because that's what this factory manual is. And I'll give you an example of that. In one of the sections it says relay circuit test, right? So I can tell you the easiest way to test the relay is push the horn. And if the horn blows, then you know that relay's good. Swap it with the starting relay, because they're the same exact relay. And if the horn works, again, when you swap them, that means it's not the relay. Or if your car starts, then you know possibly could be the relay because the horn's not working, right? So basically just swapping two relays would do it. Jerry the douche wrote a whole half a page of diagnostic procedures, all for checking hotness and relay and resistance and everything. But truthfully, the easiest way to do it is swap two frickin' relays, and if it works, then you know it's not the relay, right? Okay, so we've gone to that. Now, when I'm trying to figure out why it's not starting, right, one of the things can be a neutral safety switch. And here, when I go to the factory manual, there's another half a page. Basically here it says, place transmission gear selector lever in park, disconnect and isolate battery, raise and support the vehicle. So basically take it, raise it up and get underneath it, disconnect it, move the transmission gear selector to the reverse position, check for continuity between the center switch terminal and good chassis ground. Like a lot of stuff, right? But the truth of the matter is this: all I had to do is one thing. When you start looking at the relay circuit test, and I look down here and I read part 5 of this huge long thing, the coil ground terminal 85, and it's got like a map here of terminal 85, is connected to the electromagnetic in the relay, which means nothing. On vehicles with an automatic transmission, it is grounded through the park neutral position switch only when the gear shift selector is in the park neutral positions. So that's one really douchey way of saying this, is if your park neutral switch is working, you'll have a negative ground. Take your probe, right? If I wrote this, I'd say take your probe and check position 85, and if you don't have a ground, then your park neutral safety switch is jacked up. That's all you had to do. So let's go back to me fumbling around after reading and ciphering through this conglomerated Jerry the douchebag written factory service manual that could have been so much more clear and so much easier and way better to be able to diagnose problems with a Jeep. Why did they do this? I guess he's just trying to justify his existence. This is your relays right here. So they're all the same. You can swap them out. So I swapped one of the newer ones with the starter one, and it didn't make any difference. So then I figured out which leg, by looking at the wiring diagram, goes to the neutral safety switch, and it's this 86. 86 is the leg that is grounded if the neutral safety switch is engaged, meaning that the car thinks it's in neutral. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to a negative. Oh man. So it is indeed the neutral safety switch. I'll leave this jumpered out for now. It's just a ground wire going from here to the relay to fool the car to thinking that it's in park. Well, I got that nasty little booger off of there. That's the neutral safety switch, and you would think that you could just jumper it out, drive on, just forget about this, but actually not only does it do the backup taillights, but I believe it also sends a signal of what gear you're in to the computer. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just going to put a new one on it. But was I in for a shock when I checked out the AutoZone website to see how much they want for one of these pieces of crap. So I went to AutoZone's website, and they can get it next day delivery for only $239.99. What a hose! And yet I found this one on eBay for $31.99 from Florida and have ordered it. Hopefully it'll be in a few days, and I can still show the Jeep because I've got it jumpered out. All right, so while I was waiting for the neutral safety switch to come in, right, I had it parked at the end of the driveway thinking, man, if I just have somebody that lives around close that I don't have to go through Craigslist, man, that will be so much nicer. And there was actually a gal that lived one subdivision over who had passed the Jeep, and one morning I was sitting in the den drinking coffee in my robe, and somebody knocked on the door about 7 o'clock in the morning, and she goes, are you selling the Jeep still? You know, because I had backed it up. Ready to put the safety switch in. I'd gotten it in, and I said, yeah, and I said, well, let me show you. I started it up, and she says, oh, it's exactly what I want. I'm going to go to the bank and get the money. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So I let it idle in the driveway, and in one last act of defiance, the Jeep 4.0 1996 decided to say, screw you for selling me. I'm going to go ahead and start burping up antifreeze out of the water pump. So I had a couple choices at that point. Go get some stop leak and throw it in it and hope that it would stop leaking, or go, you know what, I need to fix this. So it was one of my fastest water pump jobs in history. Within an hour, I had taken it off, bought a new one, put it on, and had it running back again. She came to pick it up, and she was very, very thankful that I had fixed the water pump. And that was the right thing to do, right? So she took it. She loves the thing. It's running like a top. So the Jeep's gone. If you were thinking about buying it, you should have jumped on it. Next thing coming up is I got to finish this thinking Toyota. I got 2 doors to paint. I'm going to have to work around cold weather, but I got to get those painted. Then I can start putting the Toyota back together. The Jeep here, if you need a pretty good hardtop, I'm selling this one for $1,000 because I'm going to get the soft top put back on it. I got all kinds of other stuff going on. My Nissan NV200 has been abused by employees. Another abused vehicle. I haven't even started to look at it because I'm just depressed about it. It's supposed to be making some kind of weird noise, so we'll take a look at that. Anyway, what are our takeaways about starting the vehicle? Well, you can flowchart it in your head much easier than probably a factory manual, which would make it so much more difficult. Basically, battery, starter, relay, neutral safety switch, wiring, ignition switch. That's going to be pretty much what would cause a Jeep not to start. And some of the stuff in the manual is okay. You just got to cipher down through it. If you need a copy of it, there's some on the internet, or I can send it to you. Just send me a message and I'll send you a copy of it. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you being a subscriber. I'm David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.